You know we love spooky things. This is why we fell in love with Michigan-based Lynn B Designs. When I popped the pumpkin spice all the things wax melt into my burner, my home was filled with the delicious buttery scent. Plus, there's the wide variety of gorgeous nail polishes with themes like Hocus Pocus and Pleasant Peninsula. All products are vegan and cruelty-free, and you can find monthly sales on Facebook and Instagram at Lynn B Designs. Head to lynbdesigns.store today. Again, that's LYNB designs.store.
We love them. We love you. It's great nail polish. It's the best I've ever used. Thanks.
Michiganders can be a superstitious bunch. We find all sorts of reasons to explain the world around us, sometimes pulling from science, sometimes tradition, and sometimes from our imaginations. What happens when we can't readily explain our experiences? And what happens when a ghost story gets out of hand? Do these legends stem entirely from fantasy, or are people seeing things no one can truly explain?
I'm Krista K. Coburn.
And I'm Kay Gray.
Welcome to Haunted Mitten.
Unless you're from there, you probably can't pronounce this city's name at first glance. My family still has problems, and I've been living here for years. Ypsilanti was named after Demetrius Ypsilantis, a Greek hero in their war for independence. There's actually a town in one of the Dakotas with the same name for the same reason, but we're not talking about them. Ypsilanti started off as a trading post created by a Montreal fur trader, big surprise, along the Huron River, and was later more solidly established on one side of the river as Woodruff's Grove by Major Thomas Woodruff around 1823. It was the first solid settlement in Washtenaw County. Ypsilanti was created on the other side of the river around 1825 by three prominent settlers in the area. A fire destroyed the school in Woodruff's Grove, and it was decided the town would merge with Ypsilanti.
Ypsi was created in a very good spot. The crossing for the Huron River, named the Chicago Road, was built just over a mile from the village. It also gained 3 stagecoach lines when they became available to Detroit in 1830, and with easy access to travel came the residents. And it only grew from there. The railroad depot, which can be found in Ypsi's Depot Town, was constructed in 1838. From there, the little town gained more people and eventually became the city we all know, love, and can't pronounce.
We want to take a moment to say that even the city's website claims it was founded on what was a Native American camping and burial ground. Do we even need to reiterate how we feel about that claim? I hope not. We obviously can't tell you if that's actually true or not, but you know our feelings on the topic.
I have read that there's a portion of the neighborhood portion of Depot Town where they actually have dug up bodies.
Okay.
But I mean, fine. I mean, sure, people have been buried all over the place. So yeah, other than they have apparently found bodies, I can't really tell you what that means.
Right. Like bodies from who, bodies from what time period.
Yeah, like presumably the native population, but I mean, did they have like cemeteries or graveyards like Christians do? Like
I'll be
Westerners
completely
do?
honest. I have no idea.
And there are even settlers that weren't buried in cemeteries.
Right.
So, I mean, if people have been living here for millennia, you're probably going to find bodies. Just saying.
They're all over the place.
I am not an expert. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not an anthropologist. So what these bodies really mean, I don't know. But yeah, of course they're bodies.
Right. It just bugs me that like even the website is like, Ypsi was founded on a Native American camping and burial ground. I'm like, one, those would not be the same probably. You tend to not have dead people.
You tend not to live where your dead people are buried. Just like you didn't typically live like on top of your outhouse.
Right.
I mean, it's a broad city. So yeah, maybe the burial ground was like over in Depot Town and the camping was closer to downtown. I don't know.
I have no idea, but it's like, all right, website, like I didn't find any of the stuff that I read about the trading post or any of that from the website. I found
Mhm.
it from newspapers and Wikipedia. Like,
Right.
so even even Ypsi's website is like, yeah, we were, Native American stuff. And I'm like, what about the rest of the people? We're just gonna not pay attention to the actual beginnings of the okay, fine.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. We're starting off this episode strong with a bunch of complaints about our town.
Yeah. I would love to know more, but what we did find was hard to find, frankly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Ypsi does not like to give up its secrets.
Yeah, for being, one of the oldest settlements in our county, it's a bit of a sleeper.
Yeah. For real.
But just despite seeming like a chill and kind of sleepy town, Ypsilanti has been the center of some important happenings in Michigan and the US. Willow Run Airport is just next door, and it and its factories played a huge role in World War II. And where would the world be without Domino's Pizza, founded in Ypsi in 1960?
I could talk about the guy that founded it for like ages, and I won't, but just know that he was a really horrible guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He also founded Domino Farms, which I didn't connect until I was listening to a biography about him.
I didn't actually until I asked Greg about it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, same guy. They were, they're a huge family in this area." And I was like, "Really?"
Yeah. I never connected it. That the farms was the same as the pizza.
Yeah. Well, I guess I didn't realize Domino's was a family, or like connected to a family.
Connected to, because the name Domino's comes from the pizza place that the guy, I can't remember his name, that the guy bought, that was called Dominic's.
Yeah.
And he changed the name.
It's like, yeah, I didn't, because like, why would a corporation found a farm? But if it's connected to a person, like a specific person or family, that it makes sense to me.
Yep, it was one dude. Yeah.
And what Little Caesars and some other pizza chains also started in Southeast Michigan. So you're welcome, America.
Yeah, no. John Tenney just posted a thing on Twitter the other day about, we may not have what is considered like the best pizza or the most iconic pizza, but Michigan is huge in the name of pizza. We gave the country most of its chains.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting thing to give.
Right? We gave pizza, man. Little Caesars is great.
Yeah, I do love pizza. I do love pizza. Yeah, plus, speaking of icons here, infamous, you cannot miss the Ypsi Water Tower. We affectionately call it the Brick Dick for a reason. And by we, I mean not just us, like everybody.
Everyone. This isn't like a haunted mitten thing. Like, this is, yeah, no, I was introduced to it when I moved here as the Brick Dick.
Yeah, I wasn't driving, I don't think. I think I was with friends, and we were giving someone a ride home, and the instructions were turn right at the Brick Dick. And I was like, what? And I looked and I was like, oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, right. Yeah, the giant dick made out of brick. I got it now.
Yep. And I remember I was in college, and a guy I knew was from Ypsi, I believe. And the tower had won an award, most phallic thing in the world. I don't know. But yeah, it's won some awards. It's an award-winning tower.
Oh my God, I love it. I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's there. It's a water tower.
Yep. Most phallic symbol. And I was like, oh, yes. I even showed it to my mom. I was like, oh, have you seen the water tower? And she was like, no. And I kind of snickered, and she's like, what? What's so big about this water tower? I was like, you'll see. And so we're driving down Washtenaw. She's like, well, where's the tower? Where's the tower? It's like, it will appear over the horizon.
Yeah.
And it did. And she was like, oh, I see what you mean. And then when her boyfriend was visiting also, and we took him to see the tower.
Yeah, so we
slightly less amused.
we bring people specifically to Ypsi to look at this thing.
Yeah, and a popular T-shirt too you see around town is a picture of the tower, and it says Ypsilanti is happy to see you.
Yep,
that's our beloved tower.
That's our claim to fame, baby. Even I would say, like Domino's Pizza, whatever. We have the Brick Dick.
Yep. Most phallic tower in the world.
Anyway,
Yes.
going on.
Yes, we also had some famous residents. The most well-known being Iggy Pop. He grew up on Carpenter Road.
Yep.
And Rosie the Riveter, the famous World War II icon. They have that. I don't know if they've done it the last few years, but there's usually a giant Rosie gathering where people dress as Rosie and gather at the Willow Run Airport. And they're in competition with a city in California for who has the most Rosies in one location.
Yep.
A couple of my friends have done it. They dressed up their daughter, and yeah, it was cute.
That's awesome.
And there's a great story of Iggy Pop. He was still living at home in the trailer with his mom. I don't know if his dad was there, but his mom was there. And David Bowie came to visit because he wanted to do something with Iggy Pop or something. He'd heard Iggy Pop and was like, wow, this guy's great. So he drove up in his very nice car and his very nice clothes and his, I'm assuming, bodyguards, and to this little trailer that I've been to the trailer park. I've seen it. And I guess David Bowie was super chill. And Iggy Pop was just like, oh my God, David Bowie is coming to this trailer. Like, yeah.
I'm trying to imagine David Bowie driving down Carpenter because I know where the trailer park is.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've had other people tell me, oh no, that's not the trailer park, but the majority of people agree that's the trailer park.
Yeah, I think I think so.
There aren't too many really. There are some further out, but
no,
yeah.
we don't have a lot, but
we really don't. Maybe there were more back then. I don't know, but yeah, David Bowie visited Iggy Pop in his trailer park home with his parents because he was young.
Right. Yeah, and he probably didn't have, the money to do all the shit that Iggy Pop does now. So
right. I mean, musicians famously don't make a lot of money, truly.
Right. And then, of course, there were the Michigan murders in which John Norman Collins allegedly killed 7 or possibly more women between 1966 and 1969, which also just so happens to be the first haunted location on our podcast tonight. If you'd like to know more about the Michigan murders, however, we have a Patreon. Every month, barring me working myself to death, which is no longer an issue, hooray! We post a blog on one of the true crime tales from Michigan's past. This month, I posted a detailed blog on the Crouch murders, last month, actually. Posted a detailed blog on the Crouch murders of Jackson County. There have also been write-ups on the St. Aubin Street massacre and, of course, the Michigan murders.
Most of which have ghost stories attached, of course.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they all do, actually, yeah.
I'm sure many listeners recognize the Crouch murders of Jackson County.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about in another podcast.
Hey.
But enough shameless promotion. On to the ghosts. So that's why we're here. You know it. And heads up, the first place we talk about involves some details of the Michigan murders. So content warning for death, sexual assault, and dismemberment. I know my mother vividly remembers when these happened.
That's
a lot of
so
people
crazy.
do.
Yeah,
because it really wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't.
Truly. John Norman Collins terrorized Ypsi and the surrounding area for 4 years in the late 60s. He is allegedly responsible for the deaths of 7 or more college students, although he was only convicted of murdering one, Karen Sue Beineman. But it was his first victim, Mary Therese Flesher, that is the subject of this haunting.
At the intersection of Geddes and LaForge Roads sits an old silo. A farmhouse used to stand near it, and that property is where Collins took Flesher and ended her life. She was severely beaten, stabbed, sexually assaulted, and had several limbs severed from her body. She was discovered a month after her murder by 2 teenage boys on the grounds outside the farmhouse. The house is long gone by now, but you can still see the silo from the road. I assume Geddes has been closed at that part and under construction for like months now, so I haven't been able to check, but I presume. Mm-hmm. It's a creepy road all on its own, with foliage on all sides of the narrow lanes and no streetlights to speak of. But there's more than just the ambiance at play. It is rumored that the ghost of a woman walks down the road at night, and that if you pass her on or the property on which she was murdered, the trunk of your car pops open on its own.
That would be freaky. But I don't know why it's the trunk. At the time of this writing, Kay hasn't found anything that said he stuffed the women in the trunk of his car. And I haven't really heard that either. Of course, I don't know how we would know that details. Although in most cases, we don't know how he moved the women around. So trunk is pretty, you know. Maybe Mary is trying to get attention, and manipulating trunk latches is easier than moving other things. Maybe people hit a particularly bad bump on the road. This is Michigan. As we said, Gettys is under construction for a reason. But her vision walking down the road sounds familiar. I wonder if she's also dressed in white, perhaps. Maybe a more 60s dress than her predecessors. I do find it fascinating that she's also named Mary.
What does this sound like?
Mm-hmm. Popular urban legend.
Yep, we have her too. The next haunting keeps us on Geddes Road. Supposedly, the ghost of a nurse haunts the 2-lane road. She's another late night wanderer, so we have two. A woman in a nurse's uniform strolls down the road who disappears as you pass her and isn't there if you look into your rearview mirror. According to rumor, she was a nurse on her way to work when she was murdered, but nothing says how, just that she was left for dead.
How specific.
Right?
So unsurprisingly, there's no news story or article to back this up. We don't have a name or any document talking about a nurse murdered on Gettys. However, there was a nurse named Pauline Campbell that was murdered in Ann Arbor on Ann Street in 1951. Funnily enough, not too far from where Kay wrote this episode. Yep, I've read those news articles. Yep. Anyway, no sign of a haunting where Pauline met her unfortunate end. Only a lonely nurse wandering down a forested stretch of road at night.
Yep, that's it. That's all there is. Left for dead.
Yeah, I mean, we have two major hospital systems in this area, so
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, but Geddes is home to like 2 Resurrection Marys.
Yeah,
so
it's a long road.
It is defense. It's a long road, but they're pretty close to one another. Like it's within the confines of Ypsi. So
it sort of starts the road that turns into Gettys, or at least turns up with it. Does start along the medical campus in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
And it goes close-ish to St. Joseph Mercy. So
that's true. Yeah. If you hear purring in the mic, dear Michigools, this is my cat Sigrun. She is a butt.
Oh, her little mew.
She learned how to jump on the desk. This is the highest thing she can jump on. She can't jump on anything taller than this.
Good job, Sig.
Can you stop showing off your butt? Can you not walk on my... Okay, cool. That's fine. Forget it. You know. When we've asked around about haunted places, or when we've been in conversation about local haunts, the first thing someone says is, did you know the firehouse is haunted? The answer is yes. Yes, we did. And we'd like to finally talk about it.
Yep, I actually went to the first paranormal get-together at the firehouse. Before COVID shut down. That's where we met Johnny L. Tenney, actually.
Yeah.
So the Michigan Firehouse Museum, located just outside Ypsi's Depot Town, is one of the city's best attractions. The original firehouse is from 1898 and still contains its brass pole and bunk area, which you can go see. Mm-hmm. The museum itself, established in 1998, boasts 26,000 square feet to display firefighting relics from the past to the present. According to local wiki Ann Arbor, quote, the Depot Town Rag notes that the firehouse was constructed to mollify the West Side acrimony. Beautiful. With the north end of the Thompson Block in Depot Town serving as the East Side's firehouse. End quote. Apparently, Ypsi didn't have enough firehouses for its growing size. Ironically, the building has had 2 fires in its history, one in 1901 and the other in 1922. And that's where the legends of the Firehouse Museum begins and ends.
I just want to point out that the West Siders were like, we're not going to share.
Something about the West Side, man. The West Side of Ann Arbor, too.
I just thought that was like, no, obviously. This only one firehouse per side. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And if you drive through both Ann Arbor and Ypsi, actually, the nicer homes and such are really on the west side, and the east side is a little...
We're left to our own devices over here.
Less
okay?
Nice. I was warned, actually, when I was looking for an apartment by coworkers when I worked in Ann Arbor. I've always worked in Ann Arbor. And they were saying like, oh, don't go past Depot Town. Is that River Street?
Yeah, River.
Like, yeah, don't go past there. Don't go past there.
I know that Ypsi has changed a lot in the past 15 years. It's changed drastically. But as someone who has now spent over half a decade on Ypsi's east side, we're cool.
Yeah.
We're fine. Thank you.
Yeah, even living in Ann Arbor, I would go to parties. I knew people that lived here, and I've not really had a bad experience. I had one guy flag me down and try to get in my car once, and I was like, no, thanks. And I kept driving.
No.
I mean, you get that anywhere. People do that in Kalamazoo. They do it everywhere.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anyway, back to the firehouse. The legend of the Ypsi firehouse states that Alonzo Miller, fire chief from the early 1900s, died in the fire in 1922. It is his spirit that haunts the Firehouse Museum, unable or unwilling to leave his life's work behind. However, Chief Miller didn't die in that fire. In fact, he lived until 1940. His family debunked the myth themselves, but this apparently hasn't stopped the legend from continuing on. It also hasn't stopped people from experiencing strange things or seeking them out.
According to hauntedplaces.org, which we should mention perpetuates the incorrect myth, people have experienced, quote, knocks, bangs, whispers, voices, and doors that open and close on their own, end quote. One of the commenters on the website described a door opening on its own when she approached it. Another commenter spoke of a tingling feeling she'd never felt before happening when she visited the museum. But perhaps the biggest draw is that of Chief Miller himself. The debunked myth hasn't stopped people from visiting the museum in the hopes of seeing the chief, who is said to haunt the firehouse he worked for so many years.
The Metro Times, in a piece they wrote on the museum hosting Paracon in 2018, said, quote, immediately after his death, Miller's crews reported hearing strange noises in the station, with reports extending into the 1970s, unquote. A commenter on MichiganHauntedHouses.com claims that his father owned the building in the 1980s, and he experienced strange sounds and things moving on their own. We haven't found anybody who has seen a full apparition, but many people believe what they're feeling is the chief himself.
Yep, and they talked about that quite extensively at Paracon, which I really hope they start up again, because that was fantastic. Everybody there was great, and I actually did learn quite a bit about firehouse history as well, looking at the different things. I learned about fire grenades.
Yeah, those are cool.
That was pretty sweet. They have some. You can go look at them. But we did not pay the extra money to stay the night and actually do the investigation. And I didn't end up talking to anyone afterwards if they got anything. But I thought that was a pretty cool thing for them to offer.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to do that.
Yeah. And the guy who was, I don't know his title, but basically in charge of the museum. Director or something.
Yeah.
And he told us all kinds of stories that employees have said happened. And he seemed not necessarily, oh yeah, it's totally haunted, just that there's something going on.
Yeah, fair enough.
And he was perfectly open to talking to people. Obviously, he helped organize the Paracon. He was open to doing more. He was really excited about it, but he didn't necessarily come straight out and go, oh yeah, it's haunted by Chief Miller. He didn't necessarily say that, but there's something going on there, and the director was freely talking about it. The employees were freely talking about it. So
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not often, it's starting to be more common, but it's not often that a place is so open about the prospect of being haunted.
Yeah,
it's changing definitely because the paranormal is popular. Gestures at our own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not like everybody and their mom is playing up or confessing, I guess, to their business being haunted.
And one of the reasons, I guess, I was told they think it was Chief Miller is because like he was a bit of a jokester, a prankster in life, and some of the things that happen are, things disappearing, like pranks, I guess.
Okay.
So that's kind of why they think it's him.
Fair enough.
And then I'm assuming then people heard about, oh, it's haunted by Chief Miller.
Yeah.
He must have died there, because obviously the only reason a place is haunted is because someone died there.
Right.
Like,
that's it. You have one reason.
Yeah.
Oh, died
I-
and tragically. Sorry, it has to
Yeah,
be very
died.
specific.
Yeah, you have to die tragically.
Yes, that's it.
But that's just seems silly to me.
Everyone knows it's the only way you get ghosts, Krista.
Yeah, and that's how people will debunk ghosts. Like, well, ghosts aren't real because nobody died there tragically, so therefore it can't be haunted. Like, what?
Right. I'm like, okay.
How narrow-minded of you. Like, what the heck?
I know. It's part of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Change
Who made
minds.
that parameter? Jeez.
I know. Probably the Victorians. I'm
Maybe.
gonna
I mean,
blame.
they
I'm gonna
really
blame it
did
all.
like spooky ghost stories.
Yeah, and
But
tragedy.
they also believed in people coming to like visit you right after they
that's true.
passed, like to come
That's
say
true.
goodbye, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, fine. Victorians, you get a pass this time. Our next location is a place I have driven by 100 times and never looked at twice. I used to work in Milan, and I took Whitaker down from the apartment Krista and I shared. I have seen this house so many times. It's actually really gorgeous with a ton of land around it. And that was my dog chasing my cat out of the office. I think the worst part is that part of, I'm pretty sure it's actually pronounced Bemis Road, isn't paved.
Yep.
Yeah. Bemis Road isn't paved. And that part sucks for me, the Californian. However, we don't have a lot of info on the history of the house, even if we do have a fair bit about the happenings. The most we really know is that Mrs. Whitaker of Whitaker fame in this part of Michigan passed away in the house. She's buried in Albin Cemetery just down Bemis Road.
People have claimed to see her apparition, mostly in the upstairs bedrooms. According to MLive, quote, she opens doors and knocks down pictures and paintings from the walls. Residents have reported hearing her disembodied footsteps throughout the house, end quote. And our favorite resource, 99 WFMK, I love how radio stations are super into ghosts.
I know.
They back this up by stating that residents over the years have claimed seeing and feeling the same things. Apparently, Mrs. Whitaker really enjoyed her home. She seems very reluctant to leave, to the point that an apparition of a woman can sometimes be seen upstairs. No one has mentioned Mr. Whitaker, however. I wonder if he wasn't so enamored.
Maybe not.
But this means your Haunted Mitten hosts have a new cemetery to visit.
We
Woo!
do. Yay.
I've been to a fair amount, and I know you have too, and we've been to many together as well.
Yeah. But I didn't even know there was one down there because cemeteries, well, I think cemeteries are probably this half of the US can sometimes just be anywhere, just like scammed in a corner.
Yeah, you see a lot of little ones in the country, and they are little, very little.
Yeah. There's one that's actually not that far from me on Michigan. No, on Plymouth when you're going towards downtown Plymouth. So you take like Prospect to where it dead ends at Plymouth, and you take Plymouth. There's one along that road, and there's nowhere to stop, and I am super sad about it because it looks really old.
Is that the one Greg and I went to?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. Gosh, I can't tell you what it's called, but it's really neat. There's some beautiful old tombs there, and someone still decorates the graves of war heroes.
Yeah, it's definitely taken care of. Like there's still somebody is putting fresh memorials. Yeah,
and it's for a community that doesn't quite exist anymore. You get that a lot around here too. When we were a more agrarian society, there were different parts of the counties that were more populated or more centers of people that just aren't anymore.
Right.
People stopped farming. People stopped going to those churches. They stopped going to those towns.
Yep.
And they kind of exist, but they're mostly just houses and suburbs now.
Right. They've been incorporated into other places. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what that one was called. Greg might know. He might remember.
I don't know.
But yeah, it was neat. I took a bunch of pictures. I think you might be able to see them on my Facebook, actually.
Okay.
Which is at Krista K. Coburn.
Hey.
Self plug there.
All right. Well, Starkweather is a name long associated with Ypsi. It is lovingly adorned across multiple buildings in town, and the chapel in Highland Cemetery proudly bears the family name above the rough stone doorway. There are a few buildings claiming to be haunted that used to belong to the Starkweathers, but this one in particular also happened to be our public library until the mid-1960s. Mary Ann Starkweather donated her home to the Ladies' Library in 1868, taking them from a small one-room collection of books to an entire house available to hold tons more.
I love it.
I
It's
love it.
really beautiful too. I've walked by it many times.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Waymarking.com has this to say about the former home. Quote, the Starkweather house was transferred from the city to private owners. The Ypsilanti Historical Museum houses the renovated stained glass window from the front of the Ladies' Library and many other impressive exhibits of Ypsilanti history. The Starkweather house was the home of Elijah McCoy and a stop for the Underground Railroad, end quote, which is pretty damn cool, honestly. We have
That's
a lot of those
so
around
cool.
here. Yeah.
Love it. While we couldn't find much on Mrs. Starkweather, apparently she was a very generous but private lady. Her apparition has been seen plenty of times in the old building. She's been seen by employees walking the halls and stairway, and footsteps are heard often on the upper floors. 99 WFMK reports that a janitor once felt phantom hands on him in the basement, too.
Ooh. Just outside Ypsi is Willow Run Airport, home of the Yankee Air Museum, Thunder Over Michigan Air Show, which some family friends of mine are big fans of, Rosie the Riveter, and plenty of spooky activity. Some history on the airport from Wikipedia. Quote, opened in 1942, Willow Run was synonymous with the American industrial effort that contributed so much to Allied victory in World War II. Operated by the Ford Motor Company, the Willow Run manufacturing plant produced a total of 8,685 B-24 Liberator heavy bombers before a closure in April 1945. Willow Run produced more Liberators than either plant owned by the plane's designer, Consolidated Aircraft. Today, the Yankee Air Museum in one of the airport hangars has a large collection of vintage aircraft, end quote.
If you'll recall our episode on the UFOs over Dexter in the 1960s, unexplained craft were seen all over the southeast region of Michigan. This includes Willow Run, where Jeff Westover saw, quote, a barbell-shaped craft comprised of two white spheres connected by a thin bar that revolved horizontally on an axis, unquote, according to what he told the National UFO Network, as reported in Mimi Updegrove's book, Ann Arbor Ghosts. Supposedly around the site, which at one time were actually homesteads, camera batteries go dead and strange mists and faces sometimes appear in photos. UFOs appearing over airports and military bases is a thing. If you've seen something strange around Willow Run, we absolutely want to hear about it. Please tell us what you saw.
I saw something.
Hey, yes, you did.
I did. It was when I was living in Belleville, so east of Ypsilanti.
Yeah.
For those who don't know. And there was just this bright light thing sort of there in the sky. And I was driving on the highway, just kind of looking at it, but mostly paying attention to the road. And then it shot across the sky towards the Detroit airport, actually, which is sort of across the road down the highway from Willow Run. And that was weird. I didn't think too much of the light until it went shooting across the sky.
Right.
And then I was like, what the hell was that?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, and I've told other locals that, and they're like, oh yeah, strange lights are always seen over Willow Run.
Oh, okay.
That's just a thing.
Okay. Just a thing. It's fine.
Like, all right. I wonder if some of the objects in the museum could possibly be haunted.
I don't know.
So I haven't been to this museum. I've been to the Kalamazoo Air Museum, and they have several objects from World War II and planes and things. And some of the hauntings there, which we'll definitely talk about in Kalamazoo episode, but they are thought to be the objects themselves. That the museum itself isn't necessarily haunted, but it's been what's brought in.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I mean, people died in those planes.
Oh yeah, it's not like it's not like any of the wars that we got these artifacts from were like nice and cuddly. Like these are tragic objects in and of themselves.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't heard anything. I haven't been into Willow Run yet. I feel like I should.
I know, me too. It's like in partnership with the Hands-On Museum, so I feel even worse because I'm like,
Oh,
I really should have been there by now.
yeah.
I haven't.
One day maybe we can go and we can talk to people.
That'd be cool.
Finally, tonight, we'd like to talk about a place that's no longer standing, but is still remembered as one hell of a haunted place, the Ypsilanti State Hospital. And I actually know people who visited this place when it was still standing. The hospital complex was located at the northeast corner of Platt and Willis Roads in technically York Charter Township. It was named for Ypsilanti because it served the Ypsi telephone exchange, old-timey days.
Oh yeah.
It was designed by Albert Kahn. Love him. Oh, love him. I think I've mentioned Albert Kahn before.
You have. That's why I was like, I'm gonna give this part to Krista because she knows who that is and she's gonna talk about it.
He was. It was opened in 1931, so he was a huge Detroit architect, Michigan architect, based in Detroit in the early 20th century. If you go to Detroit, you can go on tours, architectural tours, and you'll run into him everywhere. Probably a number of listeners are like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy."
Right.
Yeah, I'm a fan. He's like, I think like, as far as Michigan is concerned, he's up there with like Wright. He's great.
For sure.
The Ypsi hospital he designed was a huge complex with emphasis on recreation as a main component to healing. So actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
So the grounds included a golf course and an ice skating rink in winter, plus gardens for patients to grow their own food, as well as therapy buildings and family units.
But of course, like all supposedly haunted hospitals, it wasn't all gardening and golf. According to worldabandoned.com, quote, experimental therapy such as needle showers.
The hell is that?
Yeah, no, I said those two words together as a unit. Needle showers, ultraviolet radiations, and electric shock therapies were introduced. Prefrontal lobotomies were also performed at the hospital. In 1941, the U.S. Army, why did I give myself this word? In 1941, the U.S. Army Epidemiological Board's Commission on Influenza tested 200 patients in Ypsilanti with an experimental flu vaccine, end quote. You know, all the quote-unquote normal things that happen in hospitals back in the day that could totally lead to enough trauma to make the entire complex uncomfortable.
Yeah, these were pretty standard, unfortunately.
Yeah. Still don't know what a needle shower is. Not going to look it up.
No?
Totally
I kind of get the other stuff. Man, I read a really great biography about lobotomies. I know that sounds weird.
Okay. All right. Needle showers, not as horrific as I thought.
Okay.
It's just very, very directed jets of water all around the torso.
I was going to say, that sounds good, except for the torso part. So if you are interested in sort of that period in history and lobotomies, He Wanted the Moon by Mimi Baird is fantastic. I read it in like one day, so it's not very long.
Okay.
And I met Mimi Baird. That's actually, I was selling her book at a talk she was giving at U of M. That's how I did it. And then while I was waiting, I read the book. Because her speech was probably a couple hours and other people spoke and stuff. So I read most of the book while I was sitting there waiting for everyone to come out. It's about her father, Dr. Perry Baird, and she didn't really know him. He, I believe he was bipolar. I think that was his diagnosis. And back then, they didn't really talk about these things, but he was a doctor and he chronicled his own illness. And he did get institutionalized, I don't remember where, and he kept his journals in the institution.
Oh.
And he just kind of is, from his daughter's perspective, he just disappeared one night and then just dad didn't exist anymore. And no one really told her anything because you didn't talk about that stuff.
Right.
So as an adult, she kind of wanted to learn more about her father and what happened to him and found his journals and ended up writing this book. And it's pretty extraordinary, actually. So highly recommend that book. He Wanted the Moon by Mimi Baird.
Okay.
And he was given a lobotomy as part of his treatment and then released and allowed to live on his own. But as a result of the lobotomy, he got seizures.
Right.
And he ended up dying, I think in Michigan, actually. I think he lived in Detroit. in the bathtub. He had a seizure in the bathtub and drowned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he did come to see the family after he was released after the lobotomy. And she kind of like peeked downstairs because he wasn't allowed to see her. And she thought he was drunk. Everybody thought he was drunk, but it was a result of the lobotomy.
Got it. Yeah.
So really cool book if you're into state hospitals and stuff, and I'm assuming a lot of our listeners are, because they're all said to be haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Awesome.
Great book.
Last Podcast on the Left also has an episode or two on the history of the lobotomy and famous people like Rosemary Kennedy.
Yeah, case was
that they were
sad.
forced upon. Nobody, I don't think, ever willingly got a lobotomy.
Yeah, people are doomed to their kids.
A lobotomy, yeah.
And some of the kids, it's like, oh, he had ADHD and got a lobotomy because his parents were like, oh, he's too unruly. Just lobotomize him. So messed up.
It's fucked. Speaking of fucked.
Oh, of course you gave me this part. Oh.
Yeah, you know I did.
In 1991, Michigan state hospitals were defunded by Governor Engler.
Boo.
Oh, I hate him so much. Leaving thousands of patients homeless. I remember this because my father worked for the Kalamazoo State Hospital. I think I've mentioned that before. So I remember this extremely well. Extremely well. I was 9 in 1991. They were discharged with nothing to their name. And as you can imagine, a lot of them didn't have anywhere to go or anyone to turn to. So they went on the streets. Shock. So thanks for that, Engler.
Thanks.
Ugh. I remember he was a big fan of group homes. He was a Reaganite.
Yeah.
And I know when they did eventually shut the Kalamazoo one down, Kalamazoo was one of the last ones to be shut down. One of the patients my dad was really familiar with, and he was extremely violent. He was in there for, I think, killing someone. They sent him to a group home, and surprise, surprise, he killed the woman in charge of the group home.
No way.
Good job, Engler. Good job.
It's not like literally everyone could see that coming.
Yeah. So a Toyota actually ended up buying the Ypsi complex and tore down the hospital in 2006. So it was empty for a while to create the Toyota Technical Center. I think I have friends that work there, actually.
Probably.
But today, nothing remains of the original state hospital.
Except maybe the ghosts. While there haven't been reports from Toyota that we could find, because it's Toyota, they wouldn't report that.
No.
There were tales of eerie moans and wails coming from the abandoned structures before the car company took over. People had uneasy feelings on the property and a satanic room with a pentagram on the floor and H.P. Lovecraft quotes scribbled on the walls was apparently on one of the floors of the hospital. I'm just going to skip right past that. But hey, there might have been enough happening in the hospital to have left some energy behind, or there definitely was. Or maybe there was something there to begin with, even before the hospital was built. If only we could go investigate.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from my friends that work there. I mean, with this, the satanic room, the pentagram, the H.P. Lovecraft, kids are dumb. That's all I have to say. That kids are dumb. I mean, could they have, inadvertently drawn something to that area with their foolish shenanigans?
Totally.
Yeah, they could have. I don't know.
Just by being kids with a bunch of energy alone.
Yeah, and not knowing what they were doing and trying to, quote unquote, summon something. Yeah, they could have stirred up some energy. Yeah. It's not there, so you can't go investigate.
Nope.
But weird things were definitely happening while the hospital was in operation as well. And they had little to do with the paranormal. You might recognize the names Clyde Benson, Joseph Castle, and Leon Gaber. These were 3 men who all believed they were Jesus Christ. And social psychologist, Milton Rokeach.
I think it's Rokeach.
I'm waiting on that movie. I've got it on hold at the library.
I figured you had either already seen it or it was planned.
I'm waiting for it to come in. So he performed an experiment on these 3, putting them all in Ypsi State Hospital, kind of just to see what happened, basically. He hoped the experiment would lead to a lessening of their psychoses, but all it really did was convince each one of them that they were the real Christ and the other two were either crazy or dead and hallucinating. Weird stuff, man. There's a book about it and the movie. The book is called The Three Christs of Ypsilanti, and the movie is titled just The Three Christs, and I really want to watch it. It's got a hell of a cast, too.
I know, it looks so
Hell of a
good.
cast.
But yeah, the movie is just called The Three Christs because nobody would be able to pronounce Ypsilanti.
Yeah. They probably think it's like a fictional place or something.
I mean, Ypsi has been used a couple times. Like, I know it was in an episode of Supernatural, and I know it's been in a couple other things because I think it's just the dumbest sounding name, and it just sounds like a completely made up place. Like, there's no place in the Midwest called Ypsilanti.
Yeah,
Joke's on you there too.
It's true. And a lot of movies have been filmed here. I watched a film being filmed here.
You did?
Not too long after I moved here, actually. It was the 5-Year Engagement.
Yeah.
Which is fun. It's a cute movie. I recommend it. It's a rom-com, but it's also a fairly intelligent rom-com.
Okay.
It's a little more on the dramatic side, I think. It actually does look at the nuances of relationships. I did a lot of, oh, hey.
I think that's what I would do too. Oh.
Yeah. And they tried to film at Zingerman. Zingerman's is in it. But Zingerman's was like, yeah, hell no, we're not shutting down for a day for you to film in our shop. So they filmed at the Jefferson Market, which you and I have eaten at.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't shut down Liberty to shoot in front of the Michigan Theater or the State Theater. So they converted the marquee of the Gentlemen's Club in Ypsilanti. And they filmed there. And that's the scene that I saw. I was at a friend's divorce party.
Yeah.
And I was walking with another friend, and we looked down the street and we're like, what the hell is going on? And they had it all blocked off. And like when we approached a barricade, like a cop came out of his car and he's like, oh, are you going to the divorce party? And we said, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. And we were like, why does this cop know about the divorce party? And it was because the house where our friend was having the party was inside the barricaded neighborhoods for the film crew. But yeah, that was cool. Ypsi's been in quite a few things.
Oh yeah.
No ghosts in that one, just haunted relationships.
Oh, nice.
But good movie.
Nice. Well, that's all for now. All of the books we mentioned in the podcast are available at bookshop.org/shop/hauntedmitten if you want to read more haunted stories and would like to get your own copy. Every purchase benefits this podcast as well as the independent bookstore of your choice, and of course the authors, whom most of whom are fellow Michiganders. It's a win-win-win. Don't forget to like and review Haunted Mitten so more people find us. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Haunted Mitten. And I just about 30 minutes, or no, I guess right before we started recording, so like an hour and a half ago, hooked us up on Stitcher. So now we're on Stitcher because I know that's a big one.
Yep.
So just did it. We should be up there within the next 48 hours.
We're also on Patreon, as we said earlier. $1 a month gives you access to the private Haunted Mitten Discord server, as well as exclusive Patreon content, including the audio recording of our very first live presentation at Frankenfest Detroit about historic Fort Wayne, and our presentation for the Pinckney Library. You can also email us at contacthauntedmitten@gmail.com if you have a story or want to get in contact about a collaboration or sponsorship.
You can find me, Kay Gray, at Kay Gray Writes. One word, at pretty much most social medias, but definitely the Twitters and the Instagrams.
And you can find me, Krista, again at Krista K. Coburn, CRYSTAKCOBURN. And we have merch.
Woo!
I'm sure you've heard us mention it.
Go
to
maybe.
hauntedmitten.store for all your HM needs. We hope to have some other designs going up soon, and I know they've just released some new items too that you can get your logo or what have you on. So I'll hopefully be working on that soon as well.
Heck yeah. Get your car decals. They hold up really well in snow.
Yeah, I'm so pleased with that. It's the only one that still looks good on my car.
Right? Yeah, mine too. And as always, happy haunting.